Hello everyone and welcome back for the exciting conclusion of our series on Grady Hendrix's Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires. If you didn't catch last week's episode, I recommend going back and listening to that first, as we will be picking up directly from where we left off with that one. As always, Words About Books is a poorly spoken podcast. I'm Ben, he's Nate. Let's finish this.
Yeah, so like I said, Slick is in the hospital. The book club starts, not everyone, I guess. I don't think Grace shows up at first, but most of the book club sees Slick regularly and talks with her because she has an autoimmune disease. And then James Harris shows up.
Oh my god. Yeah, just to be clear, like as a result of the attack, her body is like trying to fight off something that it can't fight off.
Yeah, some sort of infection.
And are we supposed to take, like, I kind of don't want, like, I don't even want to go there. Like, maybe I'll cut this, but, Anne Savage died of a blood disease, correct?
Oh, no, I didn't think of that.
Yeah, like, it's a legit point of the book club, but, like...
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't think about that, and I would have preferred to not think about that.
Yeah. Okay, we'll move on.
Yeah, and James Harris shows up at the hospital, because of course he does, because he's like pure evil. They're like, how can we make him even worse?
He is thriving on torturing these people. And it's like we said, you can have one or the other, right? You can have this vampire who thrives on being a true force of evil in the world and does all these horrible, disgusting things to people, or... you can have your fun, campy story about housewives fighting a movie monster. You can't have both.
No,
it is a mistake to try both.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a huge mistake to try both. For some reason, Patricia decides to get a ride home with James Harris.
She's calling him, I think. Like, she's like, you know what? I'm not scared of you. You're going to do what you're going to do, but I'm not going to give you the satisfaction of that.
I see.
It was a power
And James
play.
Harris is like... well, I think Slick got this disease from, like, her husband. I accidentally introduced him to some, like, girls, like, prostitutes, and
I think it was, like, he took him to a strip club or a casino or something like that.
Okay.
Where there were ladies of the evening, and
yes.
Slick's husband was, like, real into it.
And he had sex with them without a condom, and that's how Slick got this disease. And I guess there's supposed to be a tense moment where, like, there's a fork in the road. One goes back to their homes, and one goes to, like, the woods where he could kill her and bury her. And, like, I didn't feel any tension for that. Maybe it's because I knew that the book wasn't going to end here, but...
so this was good writing, I think. The fork in the road is literal in the sense that James Harris can choose to drive home, or James Harris can choose to drive her to the middle of nowhere. And he challenges her at that specific point as a threat to her by saying, Slick's husband did this to her, didn't he? Knowing she knows that's not true. And he wants to see if she'll go along with the lie. And so he's basically challenging her, like, are you going to call me on this? And Patricia has to make the choice of, do I lash out now or do I bide my time? And she chooses to bide her time.
Yeah. She asks if Carter did that, and he's like, yeah. And I'm really sorry. And then when he drops her off, he's like, Carter doesn't love you or respect you, but I would. So, like, I should be your husband? What? It's like, okay, I'll think about this proposal. Bye. Oh, and she puts Anne Savage's driver's license. She shoves it under the passenger side seat to try and get him.
Hey, Editor Ben here. Just a quick clarification. She did not put Anne Savage's driver's license in that seat. She put Francine's driver's license in that seat. Anne Savage was the great aunt, so it wouldn't have been that weird, but Francine was the woman he killed, so we both got that wrong. I'm going back to the future now. It's not better. Yeah, so it's written in a way that you don't know, is Patricia really, like, turning sides? Like, is she so mad at Carter that she would join forces with the vampire? Or what? Or is she just trying to, like, play for time. And when she puts the license under the seat, it's like, she's still gonna get him. And I liked that scene.
Yeah, it's just it came after the scene.
As much as I'm put off by some of this stuff, I could see my way to reading another Grady Hendrix book, because there's a talent here. I just wish he would exercise more restraint, but I guess that's the topic for. I certainly wouldn't ever recommend another one for the podcast unless I'd read it first, because
you can't trust it. Yeah.
There are good things here. Like, as far as books go that we've generally had negative opinions on, this is one of the better written. Like, this is good, genuinely good a lot of the time, but the choices he makes just like explode the story. And so it's really difficult, because going back to the summary, I like the dynamic between Patricia and James. I like the fact that he knows she's right, and in many ways he's one of the people in this neighborhood that like shows her the respect she deserves. Unfortunately, it's as an adversary. I also like James Harris as a villain to a point. I like a vampire that is not in any way desirable.
Sorry, Edward.
Yeah, sorry, Edward. But we've had that problem since Anne Rice. An Interview with a Vampire. Vampires are very romanticized because they're the tragic, forever young that can only go out at night and must subsist off blood. They're so dark and tragic. Whereas this guy is just like, he's evil and he loves it. And he's a good villain. But yeah, it's again just those few scenes that he chose to put in this book just totally blow it up. And you could salvage it by having something very real to say about those sorts of events. But there's no analysis, there's no thought, there's no deconstruction, the metaphor, there's just nothing there. It's just cheap. And so I'm left with a book that I think is written by a very talented author, but I can't recommend it to anyone.
Right.
Even though I want to praise it here. So it's really tough. So yeah, so she's still going after James Harris, and now James Harris wants to take as like, this is where I think she makes the metaphor of like he's a true vampire in every sense of the word. He wants to take and take and take until he has taken your entire life and everything that you are. He wants everything. He wants the family. He wants to take her family and make it his.
Well, after Patricia goes in, she does whatever, gets the house ready, goes to bed, and then she wakes up. She's like, I feel like I heard a noise, right? Like, I woke up for a reason.
I sensed something,
a disturbance.
Presence I've not felt since... And then she storms off.
Yes. That is one of my favorite lines. Presence I've not felt since... It just walks out of frame. So, she's like, oh no, James Harris, he's gonna get blue. He's gonna get blue. I guess I should save him. Alright. She opens the door in his bedroom, and Blue's okay. Okay, well that's weird. Yeah, unfortunately. But then she remembers that James Harris is a weird, sexual, creepy weirdo, so she goes in Corey's room, and of course, he's biting Corey, and probably has been biting her for months. And then James Harris detaches from her leg and bleeds everywhere from his mouth. All of her blood all over the place. Grabs Patricia, slams her against a wall, yells, "You did this," which is, like, I don't know how she did it. That sounds like more gaslighting bullshit, but Patricia's like, I did do this. And then Blue walks in on them, and James Harris is like, make up something, quick. She's like, Blue, this is just a weird adult thing. Go back to your room. They never resolved that. I really want to know what she said to explain. Why were you in your nightgown in Corey's room, and like James Harris was there bleeding from the mouth and holding you against the wall?
He didn't see them. He didn't see them.
Oh, he didn't? I thought he stood right in the doorway.
No, he didn't. No, she stood in the doorway and talked to him. Because he would have been very confused, because what you neglected to mention was that both Corey and James Harris, for some reason, were nude.
James Harris was also nude?
I believe so, yes.
Why? He's never been nude before.
I'm going to look in the book, because I don't want to say that if it's not true.
Oh my god. If it is true, I have a lot of questions.
Yeah, 2 pale naked bodies lay on the bed.
Why? Oh,
And she realized the closest one to her was James Harris, his muscled backs and buttocks moving slightly, rhythmically pulsing like a heartbeat.
He has not been naked with any of his other victims. Why is he being naked with this girl, who he wants to be the father to?
He's not normal? So
yeah, but he
again,
wasn't naked for the girl in the van.
Shock value.
Okay.
Because this is supposed to be explicitly sexual, but like for some reason it's not just sex. Like that's this is the problem. I mean, I wanted to bring that up. I was surprised you didn't mention it because yeah, why? So James Harris's explanation is that he's not a vampire. This is his explanation when Patricia walks in on this. He's not a vampire. He is some just miracle of nature. We never really get a proper origin. This is why I thought he was an alien. Like, he's saying what he's doing is he's not drinking blood. He's attaching to the victim's circulatory system to run his blood through their body.
See, I thought this was just him being a pathological liar, and he can't turn it off. He has to lie.
I don't know. I mean, maybe he's lying. That certainly fits. Valid interpretation of the text. I just don't know how that's better.
I
just don't understand the point of the lie. Why is he naked
when he does it?
Right. So that would be my first question, right?
Well, he tried to sell it as like, Corey wanted to help me circulate my blood through her system. Like,
yeah,
you know, Corey wanted to help me.
Not better. Not old enough to consent. Not better.
And why are you naked?
So,
why?
Yeah.
I don't get it. What does that accomplish?
We should also point out that it is apparently very, very pleasurable for the victim.
Yeah, it's weird.
Yeah, and I guess one would assume James Harris is also not having a bad time. And why? Why did you do this?
Why is a good question.
The other ones, the other times, the suicide attempt, the sexual assault, I can say those were moments in the story where he needed to shock you. And so he went with one of the most shocking things he could think of, no matter the fact that it's disrespectful to people who deal with those things in real life. This one, I don't even understand.
I don't understand it either, because I didn't catch the detail of he's naked.
The vampire thing, the drinking blood, like, if you read Dracula is like a soap opera. It really is. It's very melodramatic. And when Dracula is biting Lucy, it is very sexual. Like it is supposed to be romanticized. But the implication was good enough. It in all vampire stuff, the biting of the neck, the drinking of the blood, like, we get the metaphor. You don't need to do this. Like, this is an exploitation film in a book. Like, I would say if this was a movie, it would be an excuse to have the actress take her top off. This is a book.
Someone should have taken their top off in this. You know how you can take you can take like pieces of text and you can draw a picture with text, basically? Should have just been a two pages of just drawn boobs using like slashes and L's. And
you mean
colons.
ASCII art?
Yes.
Yeah. No, this was just again. I get it. I get it. It's vampires. They're sex. Like, I get it.
Yeah. So James Harris blames Patricia. Patricia assumes the blame onto herself for some reason.
She did let this go on for 3 years, and she let her kids keep going over to his house.
It is her fault.
Yeah.
But in her defense, she thought it would be blue. But it is her responsibility.
It's not her fault. But she
allowed it to happen.
It kind of is. There had to be some middle ground, right? There had to be some middle ground between I'm not gonna publicly accuse him of things and I'm gonna let my kids hang out at his house overnight.
Yeah. Maybe you didn't do that part at least.
You're absolutely right, though, because my energy for the book. Like, I can even feel myself like now. It's like I don't have a huge number of thoughts on this, and ordinarily in a book like this, I would. And you're absolutely right. It's that scene with Slick just ended the book for me.
Yep.
Everything else was just obligation.
Yep. So here's the obligation part. You're right, Ray. We'll speed run this. All right. So the book club meets up with Slick at Slick's behest, including Mrs. Green, and they've decided they're gonna get James Harris because now they've seen the corpse. B, James Harris found that driver's license. He's disposed of it. And C, he's starting to go after their kids, and that's bad. Okay? When it was someone else's kids, it was alright. But now, bad news. We gotta take out James Harris. No more police. We get this guy. We're gonna
their whole
fuck
justification, for ignoring this was, we gotta take care of our families, other people gotta take care of theirs. Now, it's, we gotta take care of our family. Can you please help?
Yeah, Mrs. Green is not happy with any of these assholes, but, you know, she helps
work
out.
with what you got.
Grace pieces out. Everyone else is on board. They get this plan of like, oh yeah, I guess I should really briefly mention, Corey was checked into rehab where she can't see James Harris. Anyway, back to the important stuff. Patricia is going to be bait. And they're going to do it during a big South Carolina football game, so no one will be in the streets, so they can do what needs to be done and get rid of him. And the
football game is supposed to be funny. The football game is supposed to be funny.
Was it really?
Yeah, that everybody on the block is going to be so distracted by a college football game that these people can literally get away with murder during it. That has to be a joke.
Ha 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 ha. It wasn't. So, Patricia shows up to James Harris's place, and she's like, you want me? You can have me, big boy. And he's like, get on your knees! No dignity for you! I'm evil.
Well, no, he laughs, and he's like, nobody wants you.
Yeah, he's a piece of shit. He's a piece of shit to the bitter end.
I think we've established that he is bad.
A piece of shit,
He is one whoopst is bad.
So basically, he's like, all right, well, I'm going to kill your husband and take his place, and then I will use you for a year, and when you're used up, I'm going to move on to your kids, but your sacrifice here buys them a year.
Yeah, and again, kind of weird, because it's like, does that mean she's going to die after a year?
I'm assuming yes. Now, he wasn't naked for her being bitten. But he bites her.
Maybe disagree? Hang on.
Oh, boy. Oh, God.
Hang on. He was shirtless.
Okay. So he wasn't completely naked.
I'm guessing not.
Yeah, so that's weird. I don't get why he was naked earlier.
Is.
Yeah, she is. I don't know why that either, but maybe he gets off to that. So he bites her. He punctures her femoral artery. And while he's doing that, Mary Ellen, Kitty, and Mrs. Green enter the house. And they go upstairs, they find James Harris. Kitty wails on him with a baseball bat right to the head.
Sledgehammer.
Oh, that's right. It was a sledgehammer. She swung it like a baseball bat. Okay. Sledgehammer to the head, barely stops him. Mary Ellen pees herself. James Harris goes after Mrs. Green for some reason. And it just evolves into a big brawl. They get him. They get a knife through and sever one of his neck vertebrae. And then they get a diagram of the human body, and they just start cutting him up into pieces and putting him in bags. And the whole time he's trying to convince them, like, I'm a miracle of science. I'm a one of a kind. You can't do this to me. And then he yells at them like, I'm getting stronger, I'm gonna get ya. It's like, okay, you don't have arms anymore, dude. Doesn't matter. And he's like, people are gonna come looking for me. And Mrs. Green's like, no one's gonna come looking for you. That's the vampire's biggest weakness, Ben. They don't put down roots. No one actually cares about him as a person. And yeah, they hack him up into pieces, put him in a bunch of bags. Around that time, Grace shows up, like, I don't know what she was doing there, but I guess maybe she turned a corner and she did see that he was in fact a vampire because his stuff is still moving.
Yeah, he's not dead.
Oh yeah, they rammed two. What did they ram through his eyes? they cut him into pieces.
Nails of some kind.
Ram some big, two thick 20-penny nails through his eyes. That is metal as fuck. Anyway,
this ending scene would be great in my campy housewives versus vampire thing.
Yes.
Unfortunately, again, we're just like flip-flopping, aren't we? We're teeter-tottering on two very different books.
So Grace comes up with a plan. She and her husband both have like a place to inter their cremated remains. So they're gonna I guess Mary Ellen's gonna change the records, and they're gonna put James Harris in both those two spots, and no one will ever disturb him again or know he's even there. And then she and Mrs. Green are going to clean all the carpets in the house and make it look like James Harris just like up and left town and didn't tell anyone. And so that's what they do. And then she makes up with Patricia, because she lets Patricia stay at her place while she's recovering. Anything I missed, or can I go to the part that made me really happy, even though this book is just a huge, huge downer?
Go on. I think you've covered it in excellent detail.
So, she wakes up, and it's almost a mirror of the scene when she wakes up from the overdose. Carter's there. He's like, "Oh my God. What did you do? How did you do this to me? James Harris left. Do you know where he went? Did he leave because of you?" And she just looks at him, and she realizes that, like, this is not the man that she married all those years ago. And she's just like, "I want a divorce." And I was so thrilled, because I didn't know it was going to go in that direction, but I knew it should have. I was so happy that she wanted Carter to f*** off out of her life. And then Grace gives her some money that she's been saving up, which, man, I think that really Grace should have used that and then fled from her shitty husband. Take your money and take your IDs and get the hell out of there, but okay.
Yeah, Grace did stay with her husband, didn't she?
Yeah. They should have pushed him down a flight of stairs. They should have cut him into pieces, too.
I was going to say they got away with it once.
They sure did.
A lot of people were really invested in this. Maybe one of them just also goes. Maybe one of them goes to where James Harris went.
So then Carter's like, the kids like knowing where we stand. I'm going to be really matter of fact with them. Now, kids, your mother and I are getting a divorce. I'll pay for your school. You don't have to worry about that. Now, I'm going to keep this house, because it's my house. Really nice house, by the way. I'm also going to keep this cool car. Your mom's going to have, like, a crappy used car or whatever. And your mom's also going to live in a townhome. And she's basically, she's broke. So who do you want to live with? And both of the kids pick the mom. Because even though their relationship isn't the greatest, it is a relationship. And that's more they can say than the relationship that they really don't have with their father.
Yeah, that was very interesting. I enjoyed that scene. It was really nice to see Carter get put in his place. The only thing I was vague on is, like, how does he get to choose all that off the bat?
Because he
says, like, your mother's going to move out because this is her decision. And it's like, I mean, that's kind of for the court to decide. I guess the implication is that Patricia chose, and she does get alimony and child support or something. So.
Yes, and apparently Carter has to be hounded for it because he lost a ton of money in that housing development. Because James Harris put his money in an escrow account. Now that he's gone, no one can get to it, and since he's gone, some of the outside investors are getting cold feet, and they're pulling out, and the whole thing's falling apart.
Yeah, and the houses are like half built.
Yeah, they're worthless houses. Yeah, and then they cremate Slick. She had a vampire spawn in her. Less said about that, the better. Yeah, they cremate her.
Yeah.
And then they visit her gravesite and leave a glass of wine and a book every month. And then she knows that she and her daughter both have a shadow over them, but she wants to believe her daughter can still get better. The end.
The end.
And it ends with Marjorie Fretwell welcoming the new millennium 7 years later, and I don't understand that, and neither do you, so
nope.
Anyone can tell us?
Yeah. That went way over my head. There's a lot going on here that and hey, if somebody has a different opinion than me on this, and you think all these scenes were totally justified and they make perfect sense, let me know. Maybe you can convince me. But from where I stand, there's just so much stuff here that I don't get. It's kind of like that end chapter. And again, I could be dumb. It could be just going over my head. But it seems very inside jokey to me. I don't get it. It seems like we're just having a laugh at how witty we are. But I don't know what's witty about it. I don't get it. I don't get a lot of the choices that went on in this book. And I think there's really, like I said in the beginning, just bring it full circle. There's a lot of trying to have your cake and eat it too. You want to tell this slightly funny, slightly campy story, but you also want to make it brutal and hard-hitting, and it winds up dissonant and off-putting. And to be perfectly frank, I am a horror fan, and this is something to talk about for another time, but I've heard people make the case that horror shouldn't have trigger warnings or content warnings. And I disagree, because they're just...
There's a lot of different kinds of horror.
Yeah, I can tell you, I was here for the camp. I was not here for the other stuff. And I've said this many podcasts. If you are, if that's your cup of tea, if you really like that kind of horror, that really brutal, really hard hitting, really I guess emotionally challenging type of stuff, it's not for me. I do have my limits, and this crossed them. And I would say again, it's really not that he went there so much as he had nothing to say about it, and I just think it's disrespectful to conjure that kind of imagery for a cheap shock. And it seems very almost manic, the way he writes. No restraint, no restrictions. He's just going to the extremes in whatever direction it takes him. And then at the end, that Happy Holidays book clubbers, it's kind of like signing off with a joke.
Yeah.
And it's what kind of story do you think you wrote? Because I will say, I can't laugh after some of this.
No. After that part especially, it's just okay.
Entertainment is entertainment. Fiction is fiction. You should be allowed to explore ideas in fiction. That's fine. You can watch Cannibal Holocaust, the movie. If your favorite movie is Cannibal Holocaust, I'm concerned. There's nothing illegal, nothing horrible about it, but if that sort of thing is really your jam, I mean, I just have a really hard time understanding it. So for me, I know it made me uncomfortable. I know it would make everyone I know uncomfortable, and I'm genuinely sorry we read it on this podcast. It's a shame, because Grady Hendrix is talented. I'm in the awkward position of saying this is the most talented writer I have had to bash on this podcast. I wish I could praise him. I wish I liked this book. I wish he didn't go so far as he went. I wish there was just a little bit of restraint. But yeah, for me, I can't look past it. If I could take out just a couple scenes, or even just tone them down, maybe we could work with something. But yeah, because when you got stuff like all this brutal, grounded in reality, emotional manipulation of assault, domestic violence, and all these things, it's then you have Miss Mary's ghost.
Yeah.
Telling you where the picture is. If Grady Hendrix's other books are a little bit more toned down, I think I could see my way to really liking his writing. But I doubt that. And having read this, I will not. I'd recommend Paperbacks from Hell. That was fine. That was nonfiction. But his other stuff, I'd have to read it before I'd ever consider recommending it to anyone. And I'm not sure if I want to read it because this makes me deeply uncomfortable. So those are my final thoughts. I'm sorry if I monopolized the mic there.
No, I agree with everything you're saying. Absolutely. We're on the same page for this one.
You know, Nate, I never thought I would be looking forward to our next book, but boy, am I ready for something a little bit lighter.
Yeah.
Why don't you remind everyone what we're reading next month?
Next month, we are reading Star Wars Dark Force Rising, the sequel to Star Wars Heir to the Empire, which we read last year. It's going to be good. It's going to be great. And I think that at the end of this month, we're going to read a few short stories from the Machine of Death. So we'll talk about that when it comes up.
Yep, we've got that coming up. Do you know who writes that? I don't off the top of my head.
It's a compilation thing, so yeah, I don't know.
Okay. Yeah, The Machine of Death, it's an anthology. Look for it on Amazon. It's pretty easy to find. I don't know if you can still get a paperback of it. With that, you guys know the drill. Check us out on Twitter at WABpod. Check out the blog at blog.wordsaboutbooks.ninja. And if you wouldn't mind telling your friends, sharing on social media, anything you could do to get the word out about the podcast, it really helps. Look forward to reading something that's not going to make me sad and ashamed.
Me too.
Good night.
Bye.